Exercise 1, AutoCAD 2025. In this exercise, we take a look at an introduction into AutoCAD and a bit of the interface. We're going to build that model that you see right there, and there's many ways you could do this. I'm just going to go through and discuss this set of methods. So let's begin. Go ahead and go to New, and select the AutoCAD 3D template. First thing you might want to do is go to Isometric and go to the top view. Now, over here in the upper left, we have the ability to go ahead and select from realistic to 2D wireframe. Go ahead and select that. Also, we're going to go ahead and click down here for our snap on mode. That way it will snap to the grid. And this is in English or imperial units, so we'll be seeing inches. Go to the rectangle tool and then get centered at the crosshairs. Click, and when I say click, generally I mean the left mouse button. If I am going to use the right mouse button, I'll be sure to say it twice. I'll repeat myself, the right mouse button, right mouse button. But in this case, just the left, as I just referred to as click. And now, once you click, drag to the upper right, and at this point you see the dimensions boxes just appear. So you could go ahead and type in values. This is going to be a 3, so you can type in 3. You don't have to type 3.00, just 3. And then on the keyboard, hit the tab key on the left side, just once. And now go ahead and type in for the second dimension, 5, and then hit enter. And now to zoom to fit, you could go ahead and just click on this top of the view box. And now we can see our geometry. Now, if you want, you could scroll in and out with the wheel to zoom out a little bit if you want to see the screen a little bit better. Okay, now we want to use that rectangle tool again. So rather than go and click on it, the fast way is just to hit enter again. And now hover your pointer back in the lower left corner, click, and move it to the right side here. And we could see 3.0 by 1.5. We could either enter those numbers, but those are the exact numbers we want. Otherwise, remember, you could type in 3, hit tab, and then type in 1.5. But since I'm snapping to these grid points accurately, I could just go ahead and click. All right, now we're going to go ahead and go to the circle tool, hit the little arrow underneath it, and find center diameter. Hover in this upper left quadrant, and when you see the specify center point for circle, and it says 1 inch by 4, that's what you want. So you're going to snap to that. Go ahead and click and move your pointer outward. And as soon as you get a dialog box, go ahead and type in 0.75 and hit enter. Now we have the geometry ready to create a solid with. Now we could go in, and there are these really neat tools here. First of all, to get some of these toolbars up that you might not have, right click on any of the buttons, and again, right click and show tabs. Make sure you have 3D tools, visualize, select, and visualize selected. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and actually, let me see if there's one more. Yes, let's go to parametric. If you don't have parametric selected, go ahead and select parametric. Now, parametrics are halfway inside this software. Basically, you could make a parametric sketch, and it enables you to change it very easily with dimensions. So select parametric. Now you'll see, since this is to size, all we have to do is click on auto constrain, click once up here, release it, and then move your pointer to select around the geometry you want. Click again and hit enter. And it will add all these little values. And basically what these are common elements of geometry, like parallelism, perpendicularity, horizontal. And what we want to do, one that we're going to add manually, is the lock. And this is basically fix or to anchor. So click on that and anchor that lower left corner by clicking on it. And that will lock it into place so it can't be moved. Now what else we could do is we could add dimensions in here. So if you hit the little, if you go to aligned, and now let's say we want to get the width here, click on this line and then this line, and you can drag it down or up. I'm going to drag it down, click to release it, and that is a parametric dimension. Just hit enter. And now we'll do the same, go back to linear, or I could hit enter again and click on this line and this line here and drag it to the left and click. Now you might be seeing that D2 or D1 condition, and that's fine. I'm just going to click. I have mine turned off, and the way you could turn that on and off is by clicking on this little arrow here, and this brings up the constraint settings, and you could just select value from the list, and you could turn off some of these other options so you don't see the little locks and such, and so it actually gives you the dimension. Now let's go and dimension that diameter. So go to diameter and select the edge here. Now it might be safe to say we could turn off the snap mode, so let's turn that off right here, the snap to grid. And now you can select the edge and drag out this dimension and click to drop it there. It's already at proper dimension. Okay, one other one, let's go to linear and select this line here and this line here, and you could just drop that right there on the left, hit enter, and now we have it constrained. So what is the purpose of doing that? Well, go ahead and click on this home button in the upper right here. That brings us to an isometric. Also, what we could do is we could hide those constraints. Like you don't need to necessarily see them. So you will see hide all. Go ahead and select that. There's also hide all the dimensions too, but we'll leave those in there. But now let's watch what you could do here. Like let's say you wanted to change this diameter. Double click and type in 1 for 1 inch and hit enter, and you'll see it will enlarge it. Double click again, and or we could have hit undo. We could type 0.75 to get it to a small size again. Same with here. We could double click here, make it 6.0 and enter, and you'll see it will expand it. Now there is the undo button, which many of you know is already there, but you can go ahead and undo that. So that's the beauty of parametrics, especially when you make a sketch, because you could reuse these and change them if you need to. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the solids portion here. So go to 3D tools. Now there is extrude, and we could go that route or press pull. Press pull is probably the easiest method, but you have to have certain conditions, and we do meet those conditions with this model. We have nice water type boundaries, and extrude needs that too, but what you'll see here is we could hover over this area right here. You see all the edges highlight. You could just click, release, and now you could drag this up and make that 0.5, hit enter. Now hover over this block, click, drag it up, and that's 1 inch. So just type in 1 and hit enter. Now these are two separate bodies. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to union, and now select the edge of this part. And by the way, watch this edge disappear because that's showing that these are two individual bodies now. And get to the edge of this part and click and hit enter and see that edge disappeared. It is now a solid. And if you go to 2D wireframe, you could try all these. Shaded with edges is one of my favorite. And now you can see the actual model. Now you could spin this with this tool over here. You could click on top, go back to isometric. Now, if you want, you could hold the shift key down and your wheel on your mouse, if you push that down like it's a button, don't scroll it, push it down, move your mouse left and right, you could dynamically rotate. So go ahead and rotate in this direction so the hole is on the back side or to the right there. And we're going to add some additional features. Now we're going to put in a fillet, and a fillet is a radius. It's like filing an edge down to make it smooth. So let's go to fillet edge, click on fillet edge, and down here select radius. And we do want a 1 inch. I mean, you could type in 1 inch if you want. It was defaulting on mine to that, but just to show you. Now hover over this edge. Now sometimes I've seen the phenomena where I think there's a setting maybe on or off on your system where you're not getting this edge. You might have to hit escape and retry. I'm not sure what happens, but I've seen it happen with some of my students. But anyway, you might have to get out of it and try it again. But I'm going to click on this edge, and you can see a preview of the fillet. And click on this edge over here. We see a preview. Hit enter and enter again on your keyboard. And there's our fillets. Now hit the little arrow to the right of fillets, and there's chamfer. A chamfer is an angle. And we get to specify like a distance for that. And so we could go ahead and click on distance. And 1 inch is way too big. Make it 0.125, enter. And then there's 0.125 for the other side too. That on a 90-degree angle will give us a 45-degree chamfer. So now just select the edge and you have to go around because we're not going all the way around. If we were, we could click on loop here, but we're just going around this edge. So we don't want the whole face changed. And go ahead and hit enter, and then you see a preview, hit enter again. Now to get back to chamfer, we're going to add one up here, hit enter, and it takes you back and it remembers your settings. So you could go ahead and just click on these edges here and around, hit enter and enter again. And so now you can see if we use the wheel to scroll, we've made our part rather quickly. Hold shift and drag and you could rotate this around and see the geometry. Now, and I'm saying drag with the middle wheel like we learned earlier. So go ahead and rotate this so it looks like this. And basically it's the bottom cube between left, front, and bottom here. You could click on that and that will give you exactly the same view. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go and shell this out, make it a thin-walled part. So go to shell and select the part. Now we just get to select the faces that we want to open up. So click here, here, and here, and hit enter. And now it's asking us for a parameter. So in here we could type in, or to the right we could have just started typing immediately. Type in 0.062, 0.062, hit enter, and hit enter again and enter again. Or if you get the little message box, mine was off the screen so you couldn't see it, but there's an exit, you could just keep hitting exit, exit. And now you could see, if we scroll up here, we have a thin-walled part. Now here's the downside of the parametric sketches in the software. They have another tool called Inventor, which this would update, but if I double click on this 5 and try and change it to 6 like we saw earlier, the geometry doesn't follow. I'm going to hit Control Z, which is undo, to undo that. But you could reuse that sketch for other geometry, so it is useful to have it as parametric. One way you could model it to where it would be parametric is if we were to extrude this as surfaces. So there's like the surface tools up here where you could extrude it, but we're not going to go ahead and do that. That's a little complex. We do cover surfaces later in the semester. Let's take a look at changing the color. Now, the easiest way to change the color of a part is actually if you go to solid editing, right here is the actual color faces. You click on it and you could go ahead and select the face and then it will bring up a color swatch and you just select what you want from it. Anyway, I don't want to do it that way. Instead, I want to show you under Visualize and go to Materials Browser. And the Materials Browser will appear like this. I'm just going to drag it over to the right here. Mine is off the screen a little bit. Let me bring this up. Okay, now yours might not look exactly like this. You could adjust it though by making the thumbnail smaller or bigger and moving some of these boxes around. Like in between here, you'll see that there's the ability to adjust these and make them smaller and so on. Now, if there's something you want on here, like you could go to category, click on category, and you'll see all sorts of materials to choose from. And once you go to category, it alphabetizes it. It alphabetizes it. And so we want to look for, let's go to metals, and you'll see satin finished. There's all sorts of different finishes you could go with, machined, knurled, and let's see here. Here's a painted white. Anyhow, I'm just going to go ahead and pick one, and feel free to pick one. Look around and find one that you really like. I would stay away from knurled on this one. It looks kind of funny, but I'm going to go to galvanized, and you click on this little button here, and it brings it into this actual file. And now what you can do, you can drag it onto the part, and it should have accepted that. And if you don't see it necessarily, if you go here with shade with edges, you could go to realistic, and then you could actually get a little bit better glimpse of what it looks like. In this case, it's very dark on mine. Now, if you wanted to, you could go to the home button here. Let's see here. Visualize. Anyhow, here we go, under 3D tools. And you'll see filter, and you could select an individual face or edges that you want to change colors of, and so on. So let's say I picked face, and I select that face, and now I find a different material. Try and find something different, polished aluminum, bring that up there, and you'll see it adopted that color. Okay, now if we want to render this, rotate it how you would like to see it rendered. Go to Visualize, and over here you'll see there's quality. I would set it to medium, and there's Render Window or Render Viewport. Go ahead and select Render Viewport, and then hit this little button here. And it'll take a minute. It'll use your rendering tools to actually render the geometry, and you can see it in a more realistic setting. Now, there are other settings here. You could click on this, and there's Render Environment and Exposure. If you click on that button, it brings up an entirely new dialog box over here on the left. And you could turn on the environment. Oops. And then go ahead and hit Render again. And you'll see it comes up maybe a little bit better looking, changes the lighting effects and such. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set a different one here. I like the grid lights look really cool. And you have the ability to change the background. You could use custom background and put an image in. I'll hit render again. And depending upon your microprocessor, it may take longer. But as you can see, you can make renderings and such with this. This is just for fun at this point. But just wanted to show that to you. Now to get out of this, just rotate with your middle wheel. Oops, mine is stuck on this. All right, so we could go back and turn off realistic. You could go back to shaded with edges, and then you're out of that now. And so there's our model. One last thing, if you don't care about the rendering and the environments and things like that, you can, like I showed you earlier under 3D tools, and go to solid editing, go to the face, color, and you could select, go over here to the filter and select individual faces. And it's not doing what I expected. Oh, it's because we have the renderer up. Let me see if I can find a different color here. I think it's locked up. Anyhow, have a little fun with that. I'm not going to go through all the changing colors and rendering, but you see how you could actually apply new materials and such and have fun with it. Enjoy playing with it. Now, those of you who are in my class, you need to turn this in. And here's what I would recommend doing is get it to like an isometric view. And you just have to, if you hold the Windows, hold Shift down and S as in Sam. It brings up, it changes to a dark gray. You could just click and drag a fence to surround the geometry. And it should create, it should drop this actually, if you're in Windows 11, it will drop it in your pictures directory. Or you could now paste it into Microsoft Paint or Microsoft Word. So if I went here to Microsoft Word, and here I am, I just click Control V to paste, and there's my image. And those of you in my class, you could just do a file save as, and you would save it as a PDF. That's it. And submit that PDF into the D2L learning system. All right, now after this, there's exercise 1 and exercise 1B that you could work on. I have videos for those. Those are separate. If you just scroll down, those view my class in the D2L assignments area, scroll down on the assignments and you'll see all the labs, and there's videos that accompany them, and just submit those labs similarly to this. Always give me like an isometric view or the best view that shows the most of the details. Like this is a good view right here. Usually isometric works. Okay, and that concludes this exercise.